Howdy, all. It's Friday. It's the Friday before Christmas. Just to let everybody know, we're not going to be here on Monday. That's Christmas Day. We'll let you know regarding the times of shows next week because I'll be covering a lot of the games at the World Junior. But most of the games are like early afternoon and evening, so we should be able to do webcasts probably early in the morning. We'll let everybody know about that.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, and plus we have questions in the chat. If you have some questions at the end for the end of the show, we'll take those as well. Go ahead, Russ. You said something. So
pre-show here. I just saw today that the Mets had signed Omar Minaya as special assistant to the GM. That's why I'm wearing the Met hat. I think there's a weird vibe coming from Met fans because they felt like he turned the team too Latin. And I'm sorry, was somebody going to complain that Carlos Delgado was hitting the cover off the ball for a couple of years for them? Or even Pedro, the first year was really good. He had 17 wins. I mean, there was a game Delgado had 8 RBIs, I think. Was anybody complaining in that game?
Yeah.
This has become like a weird thing. But I had to point out on someone's Facebook page, hey, Jacob deGrom and Matt Harvey, as an example, were Omar guys, and they're pretty white. So this is an issue for you.
Well, honestly, who cares?
I know.
I look at the like, say you look at the Yankees, Castro, who they just traded, but last year, Castro. Didi Gregorius is from the Caribbean. Gary Sanchez. I mean, Luis Severino.
Yeah.
Who cares? If they're good, I could care if they're from Mars.
I know.
I mean, come on, Mets fans. Jesus.
Like even guys like I think even Seth Lugo was an Omar Minaya scouted guy. Like it's just there's so many of them, and that's what Met fans should be happy about is even though they may not be getting all the players that they want and they're mad because the Yankees are trying to get Garrett Cole and all that. I get it. At the end of the day, they changed their training staff. They got a new manager in Mickey Callaway, and now they brought in Omar Minaya to help with the scouting end of things. And that upgrade could be just as important as any players they might get in the offseason.
Yeah, and for those who hate the evil empire,
and we do.
The funny thing that came out, I think it was yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, was this report out of now this outlet has sort of been disgraced by Barstool Sports. I mean, there was a show on ESPN, but
ESPN, they're pretty much a disgrace too,
right? And the thing was that there was a Barstool reporter, if you can call him that, and I don't know a lot about them, so I'm sort of flying in the dark here, but I know that there was a report on Wednesday that Yu Darvish was to sign with the Cubs, and it was reported by a Barstool reporter, and I saw some crosstalk back on social media that this guy had a reputation of being pretty spot on, that he had called a few things previous that the Cubs did way before anybody else did. Maybe that was just luck. All I know is that Yu Darvish came out on social media and went hashtag fake news. So Darvish just poo-pooed that. And there had been talk about him talking to the Yankees, but that the Yankees are basically waiting. And this is where it's getting in other sports, folks. The Yankees are waiting for his price to come down because they don't want to go over this $197 million luxury tax. Because if they stay underneath that for a year, next year they're gonna blow up the world. They're gonna bid on everybody, and they won't have to spend as much money as they normally do. So the Dodgers did that with that trade that they made with the Braves, with Alex Anthopoulos, the former Dodger assistant GM and Blue Jays GM, and now they're underneath the luxury tax, and the Yankees are trying to do the same thing. So there you go. I mean, that's how it works. And in hockey, there's going to be a lot of stuff at the deadline with teams moving out players to teams that are not cap teams like Arizona, and Arizona will probably take on salary to get young prospects and draft picks and things of that nature. I just have a pet peeve here because okay, I'm left-handed. I'm a left-handed I'm a
sorry.
left-hand. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm a left-handed guitar player. I'm bad. I'm hideous. I am not very good, but I enjoy playing the guitar every once in a while, especially the bass guitar. I'm better at that. Good luck trying to find a left-handed guitar out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I went on a couple websites and looked on eBay, looked at a couple like music websites, and for example, a right-handed Fender precision bass is, I would say, in the neighborhood, rounded off, about $600. A left-handed Fender precision bass is over $1,000.
Can't you just learn how to play righty like everybody else, Mike?
No, I'm a lefty.
Yeah, but listen, everybody who went to Catholic school was probably a lefty when they started writing. When they left Catholic school, they left writing right-handed. I'm not saying it was right, though. I'm just kidding.
No, yeah. They tortured them. It's like they whacked them over the hands with a friggin' ruler to make it's the sign of the devil.
Yeah,
no,
you could just get Geddy Lee to do that take a lesson from Geddy Lee, and every time you try and do it left-handed, he'll hit you with a ruler.
Get you closer to the heart. No, but no, the problem is, and I've seen people do this before, but I refuse to do this because I would have to play. So people buy right-handed guitars and then flip them over and put the
they modify it.
They modify. They put the screw for the strap on the bottom part of the guitar. They string what's supposed to be the G string to the E string, and they just flip the strings. But the problem is that the knobs are on the top where your arm is going. So it's I'm sorry, it looks ass backwards.
I mean, how much bass are you really going to play, Mike? I mean.
It's for my own amusement. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Guitar Hero?
That game sucks. I'll tell you, it really sucks.
Here we go.
That game is terrible. Honestly, I'm not the first person who has said this. If you play a guitar, that does not guarantee you that you can play Guitar Hero well, because Guitar Hero is basically pressing like 3 or 4 buttons, and it's not going up and down.
Right.
Just play, and I played that game once.
I don't know if anybody ever said it was a historically accurate game.
No, it's a shit. It's a terrible game. It's like there's
that's basically saying, that's like saying, hey, a Madden guy on one of these esports teams is as good as and name somebody in the NFL, right? Like, come on.
Well, I mean that. I don't understand the okay, I know, again, I'm the wrong generation. I don't understand the explosion of esports because I admire somebody who has the skill to be able to play these games at a high level, but that's not, to me, that's not a sport. It's just somebody's good at video games.
Yeah, you have to be so into the video game that you say, hey, I can never be like that guy, and I'm and that's great.
Right.
I look at it like, because not everything has to be physical. I think we grew up and everything was physical, so I see a little bit of element in that, but I can't watch it for very long. I can admire it for a short period of time, but I can't watch it for very long either.
No, I mean, the one thing I do like, and we'll get started with hockey in a second. The one thing that I do like about EA Sports is what they've done in terms of rating players. It's not like you go in and Sidney Crosby is as good as Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
Sidney Crosby is at a higher ranking, so his portrayal on the game is more highly skilled and can do a lot more things than other players. Basing it on reality or somewhat, I think is a good thing. And like I told you many times, I played Stratomatic, and different players had different ratings. That's good, but the problem is like you can make your own players, and so really, I mean, there are no rules with this. And to me, I don't know. I don't get esports. But there's no doubting that it's exploding right now, and it might be the where sports goes going forward. But I'm lost with it.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, let's get started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, December 22nd, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Ackland will be here shortly, and we'll talk some rumors. We'll start with some of the games last night. It was a very interesting evening in the NHL. A lot of games. The Christmas break, and there are games tonight, but after Saturday, the 23rd, there was a 3-day window. I think they're not playing on the 27th, right, Russ? It's from the 24th to
so.
Yeah, it's from the 24th to the 26th. I think games resume on the 27th. I know Toronto doesn't play until the 28th.
It's a good time to catch up on Netflix.
Great. Watch Stranger Things, folks. No.
Listen, Stranger Things, The Crown, Cuckoo. Cuckoo's surprisingly great. That's a British series. There's some good stuff.
Yeah, Sherlock was a good BBC series, but anyway. So, and normally what I do when I watch games, I'll start with the early game and sort of move forward as we go. And I there were a lot of pretty close, interesting games. And it was like one after the other. The early games all went to overtime or shootout. So we'll start with the first one, which was the Bruins and the Jets. It was 1-1 going into the shootout, and it was a battle between Tuukka Rask and Connor Hellebuyck. And Bruins win in the shootout.
Who I think is a Massachusetts kid, if I remember correctly.
Not sure. I'm not sure.
Sure.
You look up while I discuss the game. But what you wake up this morning and you look at the standings, and the Boston Bruins, I believe, have gone 6-1-1 in their last 8 games.
He's a Michigan kid. Okay.
He's a Michigan kid. Okay. They're 2 points behind Toronto. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, Toronto's got second place locked up in the Atlantic." No, Toronto's played terribly this month. The Bruins have played red hot. They've gotten their injured players back. Charlie McAvoy scores the shootout winner. Nice goal. Russ, they're red hot. They're healthy. They have experienced guys there. They have young guys.
Brusque, Bjork. They've all had good influence on this team.
Yeah, this is not a team you can ignore. Now, and I wrote about this yesterday. There is a large chasm between the top 3 in the Atlantic and the rest of the division. The rest of the division is the bottom 5 in the conference.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in Toronto thought, "Oh, second place, no problem." Not exactly, because the Bruins.
Yeah, it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah, the Bruins are the thing about it is, besides the injuries, like I said, a lot of teams when they're successful, especially when they're on the tail end of a winning core like they had, need those youthful legs. And they, I just named 3 players that have really had really good impact on the lineup, and that's something where when you add young players like that, they'll only get better as the year goes on. So this is something where the Bruins, if they start gaining a certain amount of confidence and Rask is winning games, Khudobin winning the off games, they could shoot right to the top of the division. I know Tampa right now is running away with it, but no, not Tampa. Sorry.
Tampa.
No, Tampa. Yeah. But you never know. You never know what could happen, especially if they were to hit a losing streak themselves.
Right. I mean, if you look at their lineup last night, Cave, Dalton Heinen, Corrali, Achari, Tim Schaller, Vetrano. I mean, this is not like a world beater lineup, but
some of these guys are really talented. I wrote about
role players. Good.
Yeah, I wrote about Corrali a few weeks ago on Sportsology. People could check it out. But he is a really fast, talented guy who's just starting to figure things out now.
Right.
So, yeah, he's another guy. I mean, and that's he's not an old guy. He's like 24. So, right in that range.
And they played Grzelcyk last night. Now, the report is today.
I like Grzelcyk. I always have.
Yeah, the report is today that McQuaid is about ready to get back in the lineup after being out. I think he's been out for 6 weeks at least.
Yeah.
So they get back a big veteran guy. Right
now this is a good time for the Bruins.
Yeah. So I mean, now the next game, and then I switched channels, and the next game was, I'm sure, the one that you were watching, which was Devils and the New York Rangers. Now I have to say this because I saw him last year play in the final 10, 12, 14 something games with the Leafs and 6 games in the playoffs. What the hell has happened to Brian Boyle? We know the story about it was a non-lethal version of leukemia that has been treated with medication, thank goodness, and he's healthy. But you look at his stats this year. I mean, he must feel good because he's all of a sudden become an offensive player. He scored a goal last night. He scored a goal in the shootout. He's got.
I mean, he did once have 20 goals for the Rangers, and then ever since then, it's sort of tailed off bit by bit every year. It's weird. I admit there's a total resurgence there that's surprising me as well, and I can't recall him ever being used in a shootout. Can you? I mean, I really
no, never.
I mean, so that was something where he beats Lundqvist in the shootout. That was surreal, honestly.
Yeah, and it was not like it was a bad goal by Lundqvist. It was sort of a little deft move and boom.
Listen, Lundqvist had 50 saves, I think. I mean, that game was crazy. The amount of shots on goal were crazy. The defense for the Rangers was awful. The speed for the Devils is great, and that's what I keep trying to tell people is now that they have Vatanen, and Vatanen had a really great game.
Yes.
This is a situation where the Devils are as dangerous as any team in the East to make a playoff run. And I know people just don't want to believe that yet because they think, oh, well, Bratt will stop playing and Butcher might not do as well and Gibbons will stop scoring. Well, we have to remember, John Hines is a really good coach. And he did this a couple of years ago with a lot less talent.
Yeah.
Now Ray Shero has added a lot more talent, and Schneider was great yesterday. Like, he was stopping stuff that was just insane. But the Rangers defense is a real worry here because that was the real thing on display here. Lundqvist stole them a point. Lundqvist even said after the game, I believe he said, I guess, we didn't want it enough. That's a little bit of a red flag there that when Lundqvist comes out and says something like that because he gave it his all in that game, and they did get a point. And that's the game that should be very scary for the Rangers because now the Devils are starting to get some distance away from the Rangers too.
Now, I watched, I would say, probably about a period of that game, and the defenseman who stood out for me in terms of errors, in terms of playing badly defensively in his own zone was Brendan Smith. I thought he was hideous.
Smith, Holden, take your pick. They were both pretty awful, although Holden got a goal. But, they were awful. Just awful.
Now,
Shea was good. Brady Shea was fine in that game.
Yeah.
And McDonough was fine.
And now, the question is, though, I mean, we look at the Rangers and we look at, what may happen before the deadline. And they've got 2 areas where I think they need to address. One is obvious, which is center, because they've been, after Stepan, I think, Zibanejad's doing a pretty good job, but they really don't have the depth up the middle to, I think, make a legitimate run in the Eastern Conference. And the other one is probably depth on defense. And maybe they can get themselves a depth defenseman for a reasonable price. But it's tough when your shopping list before the deadline has multiple positions.
Yeah, it is. And another thing that the chat room pointed out, which is true, Shattenkirk, had a bad game. He got benched for most of the third period.
Yeah, but then they used him in the shootout. They
used him in overtime for one shift and then the shootout. And it's like, well, if you're going to bench a guy, why are you using him at the end of the game? Like, that just sends, to me, a mixed message. And so that was kind of weird. But again, for all the people that want to kill Shattenkirk, and I get it, he makes a lot of money. You know what? He's still done a pretty good job here. He's never going to be Brian Leetch. He would never pretend to be Brian Leetch. I mean, but if you look at his numbers, they're pretty good. Is his defense good? No. Was his defense ever really good? No, it was average or below average always. But, Keith Yandel was worse defensively, I think. I mean,
yes,
he's got 22 points. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at for a defenseman. He's going to end up with, 40-something points. I mean, this day and age, his career high is 56. I mean, if you get into the 50-point range in this era, that's amazing.
He's the type of defenseman that you have to overlook his defensive liabilities because of his offensive gifts.
Yeah.
But there are teams out there that have, and I know I bring the conversation always back to Toronto, but this is one of the things where if Toronto goes out before the deadline and makes trade for defensemen, the type of defenseman they're going to trade for shouldn't be a Shattenkirk type. It shouldn't be an offense first guy. It should be a defense first guy because that's where they need help. And I think the Rangers with McDonough, with Shea, with Shattenkirk, I think they need to go out and get an effective defense first guy to help sort of counteract what they have.
I think that's fair. I do. But again, I always want to ask Ranger fans, how much better is the power play now? Shattenkirk has 12 power play points, 9 power play assists, and 3 power play goals. He's been a big reason why the power play is better.
And then I changed the channel, and the next game on the dock was Anaheim and the New York Islanders. And I know I'm one note Charlie here, but when I watch this game and I see what happens, and I tweet out, the Islander after the game. The Islanders are a very good team that will be destroyed by their goaltending. And our former compatriot Dan Petru says, "Thanks, Captain Obvious."
Yep.
But I'm sorry, but until they change it, you have to keep going. You have to keep saying the same thing. They're not addressing the most critical place on that roster.
It's hard to address it, though. I mean, we do have to be real about it. It's easy to say, hey, they got to go get a goalie, but is Michael Leighton going to be any better than what they have? I mean, that's the only goalie that's moved lately.
Well, no, but
so, I mean, who's moved? I mean, they're not trying.
Backups have moved, but what we're saying here is that Garth Snow, I mean, there are goaltenders available. Would Peter Mrazek be an upgrade over Thomas Greiss and Yaroslav Halak? I don't know, because I don't think so. I think you have to go into Robin Lehner.
Yeah, and how do we know that they're not discussing that? I mean, we don't know that.
Right.
And the only way as a fan you could be mad is if you see a guy go to another team. We haven't seen that yet, where somebody who would have been very well suited for the Islanders went somewhere else. So until that happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason that it was brought up once again is that Hampus Lindholm scores in overtime. He had a hat trick yesterday, which was
4 points, right?
Yeah, which was good for my fantasy team. And he beats Halak 5-hole in overtime. I mean, Tavares had some good chances in overtime. Tavares was really good. There's a lot of exciting things about the Islanders, but as somebody who's I mean, if they get that goaltender, I think they vault up there to, probably not at the highest level like Tampa Bay, but I think they vault themselves up into serious contenders in the East if they are able to get the goalie. But I don't know where. I mean, do they take a chance on Steve Mason with Winnipeg? Do they trade for Leonard? I mean,
here's the scary part, and I think Halak is the worst of the two goalies, if that makes a difference. He's got a .903 save percentage, but his last 5 games here, 4 goals, 2 goals, 1 goal, 4 goals, 5 goals. Now, interestingly enough, the 2 of those games where he gave up 4 and 5 goals, they still managed a point because this team is scoring like crazy. Imagine if all those were 1 and 2 goal games; they'd all be regulation wins.
Well, the problem is, and this has been borne out by teams like Edmonton and Toronto this year. You can only score goals for so long before you need your team to be solid defensively. They're hot right now. They're getting points. They're getting wins. Not last night, but they got a point out of that game against Anaheim. But eventually they're going to run into a streak where they're having a tough time and they're not going to be able to score 4 goals, and they're going to need their goaltender to make saves and steal them points. And right now, I don't think Greiss and Halak are capable of doing that. So that's where I think the Islanders need Garth Snow after the trade freeze drops off. I would be pretty surprised if within 2 weeks of the trade freeze he doesn't at least attempt to trade for a goaltender. I don't know if Mrazek.
Here's the other thing, and I still believe Bryce is better, but of course the stats don't bear out because his last 5 games have just been horrific. 6 goals, 1 goal, 5 goals, 3 goals, 5 goals.
Yeah,
and some of these are on not many shots, like 5 goals on 16 shots. The 6 goals, at least it was on 34 shots. The 5 goals on 34 shots. Like, it's just, he's had 1 win in his last 5. So, they're both equally lousy, but I think I don't think Halak comes up with the clutch save anymore. I think Greiss can, but neither of them is hot, and that's the biggest problem here.
And then I switched the channel again.
As you do.
As I do. And it was Pittsburgh and Columbus. Now, the one thing that was interesting about that game was a fight between Nick Foligno and Evgeny Malkin. Now, I didn't see the fight until after. I saw a video on Twitter. And I don't know what it is. I love when like top players fight. They're sometimes bad at it, but it's really interesting when the whole remember the Getzlaf Thornton fight, but when it was Anaheim and San Jose, Ginla versus Lecavalier in the Cup final in 2004. I like that. I guess it just shows an emotional buy-in from the top player. I love that stuff.
No, I do too.
But
I'm a fan of that.
But in the end, the Penguins win 3-2 in a shootout. Columbus started Korpisalo against the Leafs on Wednesday, and he was phenomenal.
He was.
And
I didn't play him in fantasy. I still never use him. Yeah. I never know when to put the backup in. It's horrible.
Now, Bobrovsky did play well, but in the shootout, he was exposed a couple times. And I know that that's not an accurate judge, but we have noticed Bobrovsky having. When it comes to playoff time, and Columbus hasn't made it a ton of times, but when they have made it, Bobrovsky doesn't match the performance level of what he does in the regular season in the playoffs. And I think for Jarmo Kekalainen, that has to be a growing concern, especially with the fact that Bobrovsky's contract is up after next year. So is Korpisalo, but he's an RFA.
Right.
Bobrovsky's a UFA, and Bobrovsky's making over $7 million. Russ, I look at this and I'm saying they're going to let him walk, and they're going to trade him, and they're going to
trade him. I'm 99% sure they're going to trade him.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's going to end up, and I think it's not going to be because of Tortorella, because I know he doesn't have a great history with a lot of goalies. But although he was fine with Lundqvist, not that he had really a choice.
Yeah.
But I just think at the end of the day, they're not going to go any higher with Bob. Because they do, unless he wins the Stanley Cup like this, he would have to do what Hobby Bullen was able to do, and that is win a cup. And even they didn't retain him. Even Tampa didn't retain Hobby Bullen. But Hobby Bullen's rep, if you remember, was getting beaten up a little bit until he won the cup with Tampa. Remember, people used to talk about him. Now I'm trying to think, where did he go the year after Tampa? Was it Chicago?
Chicago. I think.
Yeah. And so. If Bob were to win it this year, they definitely would retain him for the next year and possibly extend him. But if he doesn't, I think he'll get traded. I think sometime next year he gets traded.
Well, which means either in the summer at the draft with a year left, or
at the deadline,
or at some point during the season as a rental goalie. And as we've seen this year, there are teams out there that are looking for, teams right now that have goaltending depth. I mean, they're in a great situation. You're telling me that Washington, with Samsonov potentially being signed within the next few months, that they're not going to shop a Grubauer, probably shop a Grubauer now, and then maybe shop Holtby in a couple years before.
But there's pluses and minuses to this. That is the plus. The minus is you could wait these teams out too, because you can't hang on to too many goalies.
Right. Well,
and that's sometimes teams do that as well, and they wait until the price gets a little bit low because the team just has to move a guy, and that's when you could really do some damage. I'm just looking to see. I don't even detect anybody in the system for Columbus that you could maybe say is a potential replacement, that even if Korpisalo were to become the starter for a while. Danil Tarasov is okay. He's a Russian goalie.
They traded the next Pelle Lindbergh and Anton Forsberg. I mean, so
right. That'll hurt them. But they don't have that next goalie. Now, it doesn't mean they can't get it in this draft, or maybe Tarasov from last year. We'll see. So that's, to me, that's an interesting one. So they may still, at the end of the day, if they were to trade Bob, still have to go get that veteran backup anyhow.
And if they kept Bob, and then used Korpisalo as the sort of the Scott Darling situation, another team would make him their number one. They'd have to get somebody who could play major games because we know Bobrovsky is injury prone. He's had injury problems. I mean, he hasn't the last year or so, but previous to that, there were large gaps where he missed time. So that's one of the benefits of having Korpisalo is that he's, I think, capable of being a number one. So, and there are enough teams out there. I mean, Buffalo's looking for a number one. Arizona's looking for a number one. I think Vancouver is. I mean, there are going to be teams this summer who are going to be willing to roll the dice on, like I said, a Grubauer or, other number twos that may have upward mobility to a number one because there's just not a lot out there.
Yeah.
So.
Now here's an update on Tarasov. I did watch him in the under 18s, and he had a .921 save percentage, was really good in that. He's only 18. He's in the Russian junior system, which is like playing the CHL, but over the KHL has a junior system, and he's got a 1.88 goals against. So he might be 4 years away. So if they go with Korpisalo, they'll get somebody to sort of bridge the gap too, and they'll save a lot of money. But Tarasov could be that guy coming, and maybe Korpisalo is their next guy. And so, I mean, that may be the best way to do it because they're going to eventually run into cap problems, especially if they were to try and re-sign Bob. They would run into cap problems. So I think that's the way they're going to go.
And then I switched the channel.
Again.
And I turned on Tampa Bay and the Ottawa Senators, and this was a nip and tuck battle, back and forth. Went to overtime, went to the shootout. First, I have to say, I could watch Nikita Kucherov all day. He's that entertaining.
He is.
He's that skilled. In the shootout, Steven Stamkos with what I would say a goal scorer's goal fires it over the right shoulder of Craig Anderson to give the Lightning a 4-3 victory. The Lightning are running away at the Atlantic. There's, it's now not a question if they're going to win the Atlantic. It's a question of by how much.
I don't know. I gave a question. What if the Bruins got hot and they started tanking it a bit? It could happen.
Yeah,
Probably won't.
It could happen, but I unless barring an injury to Vasilevsky or the thing is they can be an over 500 team. We know if Stamkos gets injured because they've done that a couple years in a row.
Yeah, if Stamkos got hurt, there wouldn't be any kind of death knell anymore. Which is a good thing for them. Like, you're right. They've figured out they could overcome that.
Yeah, but it's ironic. In watching that overtime, the rotation of forwards that they use, I don't remember Tyler Johnson being out there, but it was Kucherov, it was Stamkos, it was and Braden Point was like the third guy.
Yeah.
And they put out, I believe, Palat and Yanni Gord because Gord's real fast. But, Braden Point has elevated himself up that Tampa roster very quickly. And now I think is, especially since he's still on his entry-level deal, it's such a valuable commodity for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, Point has really, and we've made this point more than a few times. He's really just come into his own and just become a great pick for them. Really, really valuable player at this point.
And the other thing that I thought was pretty interesting was the fact that they were not playing Hedman and Stralman together. They were playing Stralman with Sergachev, and I think Hedman was playing with either Cuckoo or Dan Girard. I think it was Cuckoo.
Okay. And that sort of makes sense if you think about it because Sergachev does tend to roam a bit, and Stralman is a vet who knows how to really cover that way. I kind of like, if it was Cuckoo with Hedman, I kind of like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. But then who was with Girardi? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I'll check on that, but because I didn't see that pairing like late in a tie game.
Was Coburn playing? Was it?
Yeah, no, I think it was Coburn. Yeah,
Coburn Girardi. That's that would have been a great pairing. 10 years ago.
And it was Girardi, Stralman, Coburn, Jake Dotchin. It was Dotchin.
Oh, Dotchin. Okay.
Yes, and
Dotchin Girardi's not terrible at all.
And I have to say before we invite Eck to the show, I have to say that I did not mean to curse Bobby Ryan, but apparently during the game last night,
You didn't have to say it; you could have just thought it. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No. I actually called him Mr. Brittlefingers yesterday on the webcast, and he got slashed, and he injured his finger, and now his status is up in the air. Invest in some hard gloves.
No, but you know what? That's not always the answer. Do you have any idea, Mike? Next time I see you, I'm going to bring a composite stick and whack you over the head.
Yeah, let's film that one.
With some hard gloves?
You could wear any gloves you want.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you get hit the right way. It doesn't matter. When I played in these media games, or whatever, against some of these NHL players, wearing my even though I'm wearing my old circa 1985 deer hair pads that weigh 500 pounds when they get wet, I still felt the puck big time through that. These guys they play hard.
Yeah, they do.
Well, sorry guys, my Google just does not want to work on any of my computers. Sorry, I apologize for that. So I don't know what's going on with that. So I'm going through my phone again.
Okay, well, we'll have to try next time with you.
I'll figure it out.
You inviting us, because maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Maybe I just don't like being invited by people.
So what do we have?
I just took a screen capture because Eck looked like he made a porg face, so I want to put that up later.
I don't know what that is. Okay, so
what do you mean you don't know? You saw the movie?
Yes, I did.
Best Star Wars ever?
No,
I don't think it's the best one ever, but I think I'm going to say second or third.
I said this on Monday. I thought if it wasn't for the third act, if it wasn't for the last 45 minutes, that could have been the worst one. I thought it was slow and moving. How many times, and I won't be any spoilers here, how many times can Rey sit outside of Luke Skywalker's abode, waiting for him to make up his mind? And it was drawn out, and there were a few other things drawn out, but in the final 45 minutes, everything came together. It was great. So I give it a thumbs up. I would say it was 3 out of 4 stars, but it was not a perfect movie.
And you're not exactly a Star Wars fan, so that's pretty good.
No, but I don't hate it. I've seen every single one of them.
Yeah.
So.
I thought they did a really good job, and I thought the writing was the best. Actually, I thought the comedy was some of the best too. That was
it was
the funniest Star Wars too.
It was definitely the funniest. And I thought Ren, as a modern day actor and antagonist and bad guy, was maybe the best we've seen since Darth Vader, because the balance in him was tremendous.
Yeah, and he's actually like, not, there's no spoilers, but
he's not 100% bad.
Right, but he is evil.
Yeah,
like there's some Star Wars characters that you didn't always necessarily agree were 100% evil. So he is evil enough.
I feel the conflict in the Force.
Yeah, no, it's good.
He's only 60% evil.
Yeah, and that's not a spoiler as well. But I thought they set it up well. Like they transitioned away from the old and set up the new really well. Like they did that.
They did.
Yes. Which I think a lot of people are sort of pissed off about. There
are. I've read that. A lot of people are pissed off that, but we don't want to spoil it. We'll
okay.
Talk about it. But
let's talk some rumors.
We'll do a spoiler thing at the end. We'll tell everybody that they can stop. All right. Rumors. Sorry, guys. I appreciate it. Crazy stuff here, as always. Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina is suddenly coming up in a lot of conversations, and as long as I've been doing this, I haven't heard, I don't think I've written about Carolina very often in rumors in general. And the last couple of weeks, Carolina's playing well. They are. It's funny because they're just about almost dead even with the Flyers, I guess. But they are playing well, and they're doing some good stuff. And this new owner does want to do stuff. So even though he's not completely in yet, I guess, or the whole sale hasn't gone down.
Right.
The word has come in that I'm going to be there eventually, so let's make this team something right now.
Which is sort of similar to what happened with Pagula when he just bought into the Sabres. The first 2 days after it was announced, they made a trade for Brad Boyes to show that there was an infusion in cash after the Golisano penny pinching years.
Right.
But I saw them on Tuesday, and again, they're loaded on defense.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm not saying that this is irreversible, but Scott Darling has not shown that he's a number one goaltender yet. Russ has said a couple times that, maybe if they want to really get back into this race, they should go back to playing Cam Ward a little more. And I'm starting to agree with that because Darling gave up 8 and Bill Peters kept him in for all 8 goals.
That was amazing.
And then said after the game, it wasn't his fault. I think he's trying to motivate the team. But if you look at them, they're loaded on defense, but they're very young, and they don't score enough. And then this is, we've been saying this all year. Francis is in a unique position where he's loaded with defensemen, not only the ones on the roster, Pesce and Hanifin and Slavin and Falk, but he's got 2 or 3 young guys. Fleury's now playing for them. He's got Jake Bean, who's going to play in the World Junior, upcoming World Junior. They're loaded on defense, and I think all they need is one really good top 6 forward. Now, I know that you reported a while back, but during the summer when the whole Duchesne thing was going, that Carolina was
in on them, yeah.
And now Ottawa. I mean, maybe in sell mode. Wouldn't it be something if they just turned around and traded Duchesne to Carolina?
I don't think they will, but I know there would be something. I think Carolina's after Pacioretty. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, and I think that's their name. I think that's their main guy they're looking at. And Montreal, they obviously have the kind of pieces Montreal would like. Now the question is, Pacioretty's your captain. It's a big move for Montreal to make this move. It's crazy. It would seem scary at some points. I mean, he's playing better, but he's still not playing great.
Yeah, but they have a captain in waiting in Shea Weber. So I don't think
definitely have a captain in waiting, and but Pacioretty has been like more than a good soldier for them. He's been really something, and and I also heard Evander Kane's name mentioned down there. That would be more short term. I think Pacioretty would be more long term, but those are 2 players. And so the fact that the Carolina Hurricanes are getting involved should send some interesting shivers through the Metro division, at least, because it definitely puts the Penguins on the defensive a little bit more, puts the Flyers on the defensive a little bit more. The Flyers and the Penguins can't let Carolina get good. They can't.
No, I agree with that. That would be a key bad thing for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, they need the Carolina Hurricanes to be, right now you can't say many teams that you're going to be better than in the Metro division for sure. But you want the Hurricanes to be one of those teams, like you want the Devils to be one of those teams. And the Devils are, obviously, I mean, I'm still of the belief that the Devils will come back down to life, but I think that what they've done is amazing. And I did something interesting yesterday, which I started to work on. And I've always had a theory about shooting percentage, about team shooting percentage. I wrote about it yesterday. Because I was trying to figure out what the heck's wrong with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that was my article yesterday. And obviously the easy thing to point to is the goaltending in general. They haven't had great goaltending. Even when Matt Murray's been in there, it hasn't been great. But the Penguins always lead the NHL in shooting every year, right? Every year they lead the NHL in shooting. The last 3 years they have. They're ahead right now.
Right.
They usually shoot around 10%, and this year they're shooting at 8.3%, right? And yet, teams like, for example, the Vegas is shooting at like almost 12%. The Devils are shooting at almost 12%.
Yeah.
It tends to be one of those things that I think evens out over the course of an entire season. Where you'll see Vegas and the Devils. When you're shooting at that high percentage as a team, you're getting some breaks, and when you're shooting at that lower percentage as a team, you're getting some bad luck.
Well,
I really think.
It may be simplistic, but this is an organization that has played 4 extra months of the hardest hockey that you can play. Yeah. Plus,
but they're out shooting teams, so it's hard to say that. It's like their energy level. I mean, they're out shooting teams still.
But also, it's not as good a team as it was in the playoff. I mean, they've lost some defensemen, they've lost some forwards.
Sure. But defensively, they're better than they've been the last couple of years, which is weird in terms of the shots allowed. Like they're giving up. They're not giving it as bad as the goaltending hasn't been great. But as I was doing this yesterday, their shots allowed. I think they're something like 7th or 8th in the league, which is pretty good. I mean, that's for the Penguins. I mean, that's really good for the Penguins.
I just don't think
That's
I just don't think they're as talented. I think they're probably forced to play a little more of a conservative game, and that's the reason why they're not scoring as much. And I mean, Kessel scoring, Crosby started slow, but he's playing good. Malkin,
amazing year.
Yeah.
Kessel's having one of his best years ever. Malkin and Crosby, the three of them I wrote in the article are all scoring at like a point a game, which is what you want out of your stars. If your stars are scoring a point a game, you really can't complain. I mean, obviously you want Crosby's a superstar. You would want him at like 1.5 points a game, roughly, probably, but you're not going to get that usually. So you can't say anyone's having a bad season if they're a point a game. Like that's like to me.
That's true.
Malkin, Crosby, and Malkin, Crosby, and Kessler are all at a point a game. So I mean the 24th out of 30. Any of all the goalies who played at least 20 games, Matt Murray's save percentage and goals against is like 24.
No. Yeah, but no Kunitz, no Bonino.
Yeah, no, those are
Hornquist is hurt. Justin Schultz is hurt. I mean, they're clearly not as good and as deep of a team, and that's why they made a couple minor deals before the trade freeze. But indications, I read an article from the Pittsburgh Tribune Review yesterday that said that as soon as the trade freeze is up, they're probably going to use Ian Cole. Who now they have Alexiak. They can fit Alexiak in their top six. They have a little more of a buffer. They can flip Ian Cole to get a forward because they're looking right now. Oh boy, they're looking right now for a forward. Either a third line center to replace Bonino or a winger that can help them score. And I think that they recognize that they need that additional secondary offense. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to crack through.
No, you're right. You're right about that.
That's a good point.
I've also heard that Michael Leighton could be moved again. I heard he was temporary. I heard that they're looking at.
Sure, that's possible.
No, because I think what they're doing is they're going to go try to get themselves an actual backup that they can trust, like say Mrazek or Dell. Like those are the two names I keep hearing. Yeah. Possibly Neuwirth. Like I've heard Neuwirth's name mentioned with the Penguins.
Well, I think what the first thing first for them was get yourself a backup goaltender, anybody, so we can send Jarry down to the AHL and let him play down there because they don't want him sitting on the bench behind Murray and not getting any games played.
Here's my question about that. Okay, Jarry's played better than Murray this year. He has. When you look at the stats, he's played better than Murray.
Come on. I mean, it's too soon for that.
He played nine games. I mean, come on. And this guy won you 2 Stanley Cups.
I know. But so far, I mean, his goals against is like 0.6 lower. I mean, that's significant.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a big Jarry fan. I'm not ready to go there yet.
But at what point, when you're saying you're going to send Jarry there to get games, I mean, at some point you have to sit there and say, okay, Matt Murray is not getting old, is not retiring anytime in the near future.
No, but what?
So, okay. But right now, I was going to say you could get Jarry games now, and let him get all the games he can down the AHL until the All-Star break. Then at that point, if you need wins desperately, then that's fine. Bring Jarry up and trade Leighton, and I get it. But otherwise, you're looking at development for Jarry still more than playing, once every 4 or 5 games.
Right. If Mike's
disagree, but I think what I think that they aren't happy with is having 2 young goalies. I think they really would like to get somebody with a little more experience in there. I mean, even Neuwirth is not old. Mrazek, they're older.
Right.
But they have a chance to get in there. And I think Dell's going to be moved. I mean, Dell's not old, but he's going to be moved.
No, but Mrazek, I mean, even if Detroit retains the max of 50% of his salary, he's still a $2 million cap hit, and this is a team that doesn't have a ton of cap space. So I admit I grant your point, Ak, that I think they need help. Yeah. But the thing is, if they're going to play Jarry, if they're going to split time Jarry and Murray like half and half, then they should keep him up because you're giving him regular work. But if they're going to go with Murray, the guy who's won them 2 Stanley Cups, then I would say it's better for Jarry to go down and play every day in the AHL, and then when he gets his opportunity, he gets his opportunity. Maybe eventually one of them gets traded because you can only have one young goaltender.
Or you're going to lose one to an expansion draft again because it's like something's going to happen. That's coming. The expansion draft is coming again. There's going to be at least one more, if not 2 more expansion drafts. Because it really sounds like, by the way, I don't think I haven't written about, but it really sounds like Seattle's getting a team. Like that. it sounds like that Seattle and Quebec are done deals. So what does that mean? What that means? Are we going to see another team? And I don't think the NHL will ever be able to put 2 teams in it once again because of what's happened with Vegas. So I think they'll be stuck with having to do that a couple times. No, that'll be it's crazy because if you have expansion drafts, say you have back-to-back years with expansion drafts, that's wild. That's really hard because teams need like almost 2 years to prepare for expansion drafts. It feels like.
I don't remember who it was that said, and this was on the webcast maybe a year or so ago, that if they expanded to say 33, that you would have 3 conferences of 11.
Yeah, actually, that was you were on with I remember this. You were on with Eric Tahashik and Kevin Allen and I.
Yeah.
Cranky old Hockey Writers show, and we talked about that because that's Eric Tahashik's theory is to go with 3 conferences, which I don't dislike. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, but I think if you get to one more team, you get to 32, and I think with the new CBA, you're going to end up having 20 playoff teams. You're going to have a play-in game.
Yeah, I think they'll do that. I think you're right about that.
It's additional revenue.
That's absolutely coming. It might even be coming at 31 if it takes a while. I mean, I think that's something. There's a lot of for that. Another rumor, real quick.
Yeah.
Eric Gudbranson, who is going to be moved at some point too. He and Ian Cole are sort of the 2 guys that are going to get moved defensive wise. That are good players. Suddenly the Islanders have jumped in on Eric Gudbranson.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical of that because the Islanders already have got big, tough defensive defensemen like a Boychuk. To me, I think they actually need more like a Mike Green. They need, I think, an offensive defenseman. What they really need to take care of, like Russ and I were talking about earlier, is they need to find a goaltender because you can add all the defensemen in the world. If you have Halak and Grice back there, they can't stop a beach ball right now.
Well, this is another place that has been another team that has been talking to San Jose about Aaron Dell, and that San Jose desperately needs scoring, and right now the Islanders have a lot of scoring. Yeah,
but do we think Aaron Dell is a number 1 goaltender? I didn't know who the hell Aaron Dell was 2 years ago.
I like his game. I think he is actually. I think I'm going to go with that. He is a number 1 goaltender. I don't know, just from watching. I mean, I don't even go to watch him enough. He's on the West Coast and he's back up. But from the times I've seen him play, at least. Sorry. The times I've seen him play, at least. Sorry about that. I've been impressed enough to say that I think he could be very well a number 1 goalie.
I mean, and I know with me, it's always Toronto, but there has been a lot of talk recently regarding the Leafs, especially with Nikita Zaitsev being injured, that they're making a concerted effort to go out and get a defenseman. Green's name has been mentioned, but I don't think Mike Green in Toronto makes a lot of sense. He's the same type of defenseman that they have right now. A lot of offensive guys who make defensive mistakes, like Jake Gardner. Gudbranson is a right-hand shot, big tough defenseman who Toronto doesn't have anybody like that on the blue line that can play in the top 4. I think it's more likely he goes to Toronto than he goes to the Islanders.
Gudbranson, I mean, and I have them both at 30 equally as favorites right now on my chart. The Islanders and the Leafs at 30% for Gudbranson. So I'm not, and I've also had the Penguins looking at it too. So.
I don't think the Islanders will get Gudbranson. I don't think he's what they need. They need a better skating guy than I think Gudbranson because other than Leddy, he's the only really elite offensive defenseman they have. The rest can move the puck well and do things, but like Boychuk's, slipped as far as being that, and so they need somebody to bring more offense, I think. But I think for the Leafs, no, Gudbranson would be a terrific fit.
And Russ, don't you think that the Islanders would have to solve the goaltending problem before they add the defense?
No, I think the defensive thing will probably get done as a patch rather than trying to solve the goaltending problem. That's what I think is going to end up happening.
Okay.
I think I agree with that. Based on it seems like Garsnow's okay with his goalies. And they're not. I mean, they're not doing great numbers.
He's the only one.
Yeah. Someone just pointed out to me that Aaron Dell has the number 1 save percentage in the NHL right now. Of course, he hasn't played as many games, but
whatever.
Has he played 10? If he's played 10 games, it's a lot. He's the backup to Martin Jones.
So you're gonna have him and Jones win the Jennings? I don't think so.
Yeah, this is the thing. Aaron Dell, and I'm not. Okay, I haven't watched. I've seen him play 2 games. Aaron Dell is this year's Scott Darling. He's a goaltender that came out of nowhere, who's played really well for a team that plays pretty good defense. And now, San Jose, Doug Wilson's a sharp GM. If he flips him someplace for a high draft pick or some offense, it's a great move for them because they got Martin Jones. But I don't know. A team has got to really be sold on Aaron Dell being a potential number one to give up significant assets for him, and I just don't know whether he is.
Well, check this out. This year, he's played in 13 games.
13.
Okay, he's 7-3 and 0-1 or whatever. 7-3-0-1. Mm-hmm. 1.94 goals against average and a .935 save percentage.
I know. And right now they are the leading the Jennings, but I don't think they're going to stay there.
In his career, he's played in 33 games. That's all he's played. But he has a 1.98 goals against average and a .932 save percentage.
I'll use the Rob Johnson reference here, Russ.
That's better than Darling.
Rob Johnson played two games for Jacksonville and got traded for a first-round pick to the Bills. Yeah. And the Bills thought he was a number one quarterback, and he was a complete bust. I'm not saying that's what Aaron Dell is, but the team who trades for him, who thinks that he's going to be a number one, has got to be sold like Carolina was on Darling. And I just don't know. 33 games is not enough to base an opinion on a guy being a number one.
No, I think what's going to end up happening with the Jennings is I would still go with L.A., Tampa, or even Boston as the favorites. I know Chicago's right now number 4 and San Jose is number 1, but I think that'll change.
Well, but I think. But the other thing about San Jose moving him, though, is I think a big reason that San Jose is where they are in the playoffs right now is because of him. I mean, you need a backup to get those kind of. Put those kind of things out. I mean, when you have a backup who's, at least he's 4 games over 500, right? So
yeah, but he's not going to get that much in a trade. He's not.
It's interesting. I mean, there definitely are people who really like him. What's his pedigree, wrestling? What was Aaron Dell?
I don't know his pedigree. I mean, I didn't really track him. I'll look and see if I have early notes on him. I don't think I do.
Yeah, I know sometimes goalies come out of nowhere, obviously, but he's. I mean. The numbers, Darling's very different career-wise, I just don't – I get what you're saying that he's this year's Scott Darling, but I don't think that Scott Darling ever had those kind of numbers.
Dell played 2 full years at North Dakota, and then he was all over the board, ECHL, CHL, played for Abbotsford, played for Worcester.
He was never on my radar.
No. Right. Okay, so he was like, he's a
undrafted free agent signing. Yeah. And he had a great year last year, 11-6-1 in 20 games. He's come basically out of nowhere. And that's all fine and good. Like I said, we talked about Darling being in the Southern Professional Hockey League. Some stories like this happen.
But he's also an unrestricted free agent. And so Aaron Dell is a UFA,
which is probably the motivation why obviously San Jose's they're not going to pay massive money to sign him because they've signed Martin Jones. His new deal kicks in next summer, so they're going to move him before the deadline because they have to, and they can get something for him because his stats are good. But a team out there is going to have to be completely sold. Unless it's a team that's just looking for a backup, a team is going to have to be completely sold that he's a potential number one because they're going to have to sign him to a contract before July 1st.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. No, you're totally right. That is the issue, right? That's the total issue. And he's going to if he puts up these kind of numbers, he's going to get pretty good offers. I mean, he's going to be a hot commodity because if he stays around 2.0 goals against, and if he plays like say 25 games by the end of the year. That's significant.
I mean, this might be a scenario where Garth Snow doesn't have to pay a ton to get him because he's a UFA. He rolls the dice. He gives them, one of their prospects, because they've got a ton of good prospects, either goaltending or forwards, and they see if he can be that number one. They give him the chance because even though he said the common thing out there is that he likes his goaltending. I don't know how anybody in their right mind can like that goaltending the way they're performing right now. But if he performs well for them, then you've got until July 1 to sign him. And I think Halak is an unrestricted free agent anyway. So that would make sense. But I don't think a team like Pittsburgh, who's looking for a backup, is going to give up significant assets to get Aaron Dell because
no, he's too young. He's too young for what they're thinking, right? I mean, how old is he?
He's 28. He's not young.
He's not young.
Not enough experience. I think what Pittsburgh is looking for is experience. That's what Pittsburgh's trying to get.
Right. He doesn't have a lot of experience. I mean, look, sometimes guys come out of nowhere. I mean, Mike came out of Cheektowaga. Eck, you found him. The only other celebrity I can find from Cheektowaga is William Fichtner, the actor. That's it.
And my brother knows him.
And that's it. I mean, after that, all you get is like Urban Spoon reviews for Cheektowaga. That's all you get.
That's it, huh? All right, well, there you go.
That restaurant you like that restaurant that we go to.
I do.
Yeah, that's in Cheektowaga.
I've heard more about the Buffalo Sabres and Capitals with Tyson Barrie as the two teams that are kind of the most interested in Tyson Barrie. Tyson Barrie, like the way you described there, and I thought the same thing, but I haven't. That the Islanders make sense for Tyson Barrie, but they haven't. I haven't really heard anything connected to the Islanders. I have heard the Canadians and Maple Leafs as well, but
yeah, the Sabres would be interested in him as a long-term scenario because I think there's going to be a lot of changes with the Sabres in the offseason. I think a guy like Zach Bogosian could get bought out even though he's got 2 years left in his contract. Josh Georges is a UFA. Their defense clearly has not been good besides guys like Ristolainen, who a lot of people around here are disappointed by, but I still think he's a good defenseman, and Jake McCabe. But and the Capitals will be doing the same thing that they did last year if they traded for, although Barry's got long-term left in his deal, that might be an admission act that if they're trading for Tyson Barrie, that they realize that Karlsson is gone, that he's gonna explore free agency and they can't afford to pay him.
It does seem like he's gone. I mean, unless something really unprecedented happens.
It really does, and it's the first hire of that level that I felt that way about. Usually you feel like sort of like what's going on right now with Tavares, which is like, okay, he's probably going to go back.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll explore free agency, but still give the Islanders last chance or whatever. So,
right.
But yeah, I think the way people are talking about Karlsson is bizarre. Like around the NHL, they're talking as if he's going to go before the trade deadline. Like there's a lot.
No, it does seem like the trade deadline, it could happen for him. It does seem that way.
I mean, that's sort of conflicting with, the fact that they're playing well now. They're in the playoff.
Yeah, but the idea is to get full value. Like if you let it ride.
Yeah, look at how much you can get for him. That's what's happening, right? So you're getting there are so many. The Senators are sitting back and saying, we're not a Stanley Cup contender necessarily. We might make the playoffs, but.
Yeah. If someone gets Karlsson now, Mike, they could have 2 cup runs with him and then worry about his contract. If you get him over the summer,
Karlsson.
No, Karlsson. And if you get him over the summer, you're renting him for a cup run. You know what I mean? Like he's going to free agency unless he joins a team that he is so happy with that he re-signs with them. But he's not going to talk contract until the end of this contract.
But John Karlsson, Capitals.
Yes. Yeah. He is a free agent too.
He's a free agent. That's what I thought we were talking about.
No.
Okay.
He really seems like he's gone too, honestly. Because
no, I don't. I'm not going to say that yet. I don't know if John Karlsson is. All I know is his price went up.
Yeah.
Right, and if Washington is in on trading for Tyson Barrie, to me that would be a signal that
they are going to trade him. Yes,
that they are going to trade him, or they're going to go on a playoff run and then let him walk because they can't afford to sign him.
I can see that. Yeah, you're probably right about that.
If they let him walk, that whole Steve Eminger trade would be for naught, and I know Flyers fans would be mad about that.
Oh, brother!
I've been riding that Steve Eminger trade for years. I know that's. I don't know. Ian Cole, though, to finish up with Ian Cole, we talked about how he's going to go somewhere. Edmonton's really pushing hard. This seems to be where Edmonton wants to go.
Ian Cole is not right for Edmonton. They have those guys.
Yeah.
They do, but
Ian Cole's another Chris Russell. To me, that would be strictly a rental, so they don't have to play Matt Benning. Right. But they just got Sekera back yesterday, so
they're playing a lot better. Edmonton is. They're playing a lot better.
Yeah.
When you watch them play, lately, they've won 8 of their last 10. They're starting to turn. They're still behind, of course, and they still have to make up ground. But they look like a team that could make up that ground.
They're one more long losing streak away from being out of the playoff picture. They're playing well now. They're playing. They killed Columbus last week. I saw that they beat St. Louis, and St. Louis is one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah.
But they have to operate at this clip right now. They have to be playing 750 hockey just to climb back in. If they go 500 for like 7 or 8 games, they're done. So they're right now they're playing desperate hockey.
No, they do. You're right about that. But there is some room to be made up in that division. Like I think that division is not.
Well, Anaheim has gotten healthy. They're starting to turn it around. They won last night. LA, Jeff Carter is going to be coming back in probably 4 or 5 weeks. What Edmonton's waiting for is for Vegas to come back down to earth.
Yeah.
Although with the teams continuing to get the Vegas flu, I don't know.
Yeah, that is
we are starting to hear a lot more about that, Eck, as far as
I know
how often teams how much time they're spending in that city, and whether they play well or not. There is a correlation.
The home record is crazy. I mean, their home record is just nuts.
14-2-1, and if this is any indication, Russ, the Leafs' third game in 4 nights is in Vegas on New Year's Eve afternoon. They're playing in the afternoon.
Right.
I don't know what the itinerary is, but I would be shocked if they didn't stay in Denver the next day and fly in like 6 o'clock at night, so they can't let their players go out on the town.
But here's the thing, so maybe you don't do anything before the game, but are they flying right out of there? I mean,
yeah, they play January 2nd at home, so they're probably flying. Yeah,
I mean, they might be staying the night and then flying out the next day.
I want to give you guys an amazing stat. I just noticed this.
Okay, we have to end the show after this because time.
That's fine.
Yep.
Tampa's a plus 43 differential with 130 goals. The Islanders have 125 goals, and their differential is 0.
Wow.
Oh, I know. No, the Islanders.
They have more goals than everybody but Tampa.
I know, they're a scoring machine. Crazy.
Yeah,
they're crazy. I mean,
if they could only prevent some goals, it's crazy.
They have the worst goaltending in the league.
That's why I think that Branson is on the radar. I mean, I think that this is like what they are really looking at. I mean, you can sit there and say they have those but they really don't need help scoring. And
I mean, look, if Branson was put in there instead of Seidenberg, it's an upgrade. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
It just gives them some defenses. It gives them some defensive players. Their forwards are very bad defensively. That's what everybody says about them too. Like their forwards are. I mean, they really don't.
Well, yeah. Other than Tavares, I mean, when they lost, who went to Detroit?
Oh yeah. Oh God.
Nielsen, Franz Nielsen. Yeah, he was great defensively. He made up for a lot of ills.
Yeah, he was, and they really have had issues there. All right, guys. That's it for the weekend. Hey, everybody, have a great holiday. Whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate Christmas, we won't be back until after Christmas. Of course, we won't be having a show on Christmas Day on Monday. And I am traveling on the 26th, but we should be able to do some shows on the 27th and 28th. I think we'll be good to go. So we might take Boxing Day off as well. There is no hockey on the day after Christmas as well. So
right.
Okay. Back 27th.
Okay.
So but everybody Mike, have a great Christmas. Russ.
Yep. You too.
Enjoyable holiday off season here.
I'll enjoy the Chinese food. Thank you.
Enjoy the Chinese food. Yes, we do Chinese food. That's something that even though I celebrate Christmas, my wife's Jewish.
Christmas Eve, Chinese food, baby.
That's what we do too. Yep. So and we'll do our normal Christmas, which is the outside. My family comes and we open presents outside by the campfire, which is awesome. So
that's cool.
That's what we do on Christmas morning, which is fun. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Have a great holiday. Thanks again for watching the show. Thanks for supporting the show. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.